Hear me out. Maybe you didn't lose your creativity. You just lost the outlet that you've attached it to, okay? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Sammy, Sam Marie, Samantha Marie a lot, if you will. A little bit to know about me. I'm 28. I am a psychiatric physician assistant, avid reader, hobby enthusiast, small business owner, fur baby mother of 3. I'm married, and I like to make videos in my free time, okay? I like a creative outlet. Now, as you might have figured out from the intro, from the title, from the thumbnail, I have been feeling a bit creatively flat. Creativity is not sparking. I'm short-circuiting. The wires are mixed up. Somebody cut the red one, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Because of that, I've been looking into creativity a little bit. And so I'm starting to think that you don't just lose your creativity. It doesn't necessarily just disappear into thin air, but conditions in your life can change, and those conditions can have an effect on that creative capacity. So I've had my pity party about it. I've had my spiral, but I think now it's time to start getting the gears grinding again, get mechanics moving, bring my brain back to life, okay? We're done spiraling, we're done wallowing. It's time to move on and get creative. Let me give you a little bit of context and why I feel like I've reached this creative block. I am someone who has really tied my creativity to exercise, whether that's walking, running, lifting, having my headphones in, and getting a good sweat session in. That is where my creativity lies, where I feel like I think of new ideas, video concepts, think about the book I've just read. And recently I did suffer a back injury in the process of training for high rocks. As a result of that injury, I haven't been working out at all. I've been doing little physical therapy sessions. That's why there's a mat on the floor over here. We have it just set up and ready to go. Having that creative outlet completely cut off was bad for my physical well-being, but also my mental well-being. Things were getting deep, dark, and devastating for a little minute. So when I hurt my back and I had to slow down, I really felt like I lost a version of myself. I fully lost access to it. And it was because I tied a portion of my identity to exercise and to working out. And that can be dangerous. And I really started to think that with this outlet being gone, my creativity was going to be gone. Now, I think if we're going to be talking about creativity, it's important that we define it, okay? Because I think creativity really had been lost on all of us for some time in terms of how we define it. I think traditionally creativity felt like you could only be a creative person if you were an artistic person, whereas more so analytical people were pigeonholed into STEM futures, science, mathematics, engineering, and that they were not creative. And that's really not what creativity is. And creativity is important across the board, no matter what field you went into, whether that is something more of the arts or that is something more analytical. Being creative is really just at its core having this ability to bring something new and original and honest into existence. So that doesn't necessarily need to be a work of art, a painting. It could be a solution to a problem. It could be just an idea, a hypothesis. It could be just linking two different ideas together and really being creative. How many times can I say creativity and creative in this video? It's kind of just an exercise of the brain. It's cognitive flexibility. And with that, people have been trying to understand creativity at a scientific level, and I've been looking into it because I need inspiration for new outlets. I want to talk about the neuroscience behind this because it's pretty interesting, and I feel like it goes against everything that I ever thought of growing up, or again, being pigeonholed into a category of oh, you're right-brained, oh, you're left-brained. I'm going to keep this small, keep it digestible. I've done a little bit of research, but I am certainly by no means the expert. I'm just a girl trying to re-spark her creativity and challenge her brain on every wavelength that I can, because I want it to be functioning at a high level for a while, okay? Neuroscientists are looking into this, and they're really finding that creativity is not one center, one hub for creativity in your brain, but it's rather more so a combination of different centers working together to give you a creative output. Okay, so we have a default mode network and we have an executive control network. The default mode network, this is your wakeful rest, daydreaming, recalling of memories. This is more so what you tend to think of when you think of being creative and artistic. And then your executive control network is organizing, refining, developing, analyzing. And this is what you think of when you think of your, kind of like factual things, right? However, there is a salience network that is a link between these two. And that is what our goal is in creativity is we need a little bit of this, we need a little bit of that, and we need to bring it together in order to have an output of creativity. So we basically have our own imagination network in our brain that needs to come along with an organizational portion of our brain, because the imagination is what's going to generate these new ideas, generate dreams. But this side of the brain is going to refine, organize, and detail those possibilities to make them a reality. And that's where we get creativity, which is really cool. It's very interesting. Believe it or not, we can break this down further. In looking into creativity, something that comes up often is divergent thinking, but also convergent thinking. Divergent is kind of where you're thinking of all the possibilities that could happen, whereas the convergent is taking those possibilities and narrowing it down to the most effective, efficient solution to the problem. Now, sometimes these thinking patterns can get separated, and that's where we get lost. The divergent thinking is often most effective and most seen if you are in kind of a clear-headed space, you're relaxed, maybe you're outside in nature, whereas sometimes we get lost to only doing the convergent thinking because we're in a 9-to-5 in a cubicle, we're stressed out. Really, we need to bring the two together. We need to utilize both of them together. Being creative is really all about flexibility and openness and giving that opportunity for your brain to do what it can do. However, sometimes we're just in a survival mode. For me, for example, I've had an injury, not feeling my best. My brain is in survival mode. I haven't given it the opportunity to think the way it wants to think. And now I've been cornered and pushed into a management mode instead of an imagination mode. That's not where we want to be. And now with all of that in consideration, when I came across this injury, had this injury, I didn't just lose exercise and movement. I lost something that really helped to regulate my nervous system, get those endorphins, and get my brain moving. I lost my main source of access to my default mode network. And so now the big question is, how are we getting that creativity back? There's a couple ways, okay? Number one, first and foremost, we're starting with physical movement. This is not going to be intense. It can't be intense for me right now. This is my biggest roadblock. It's why we're all here, guys. We are still going to incorporate movement. I have physical therapy movement that I'm supposed to be doing, and rather than doing it once a day, I'm now doing it 4 times a day. And I don't feel quite the escape I would if I'm doing regular exercise that I would be doing, but I'm making an adaptation to what my body is capable of right now. And that is slow and controlled movements. This just general movement is going to promote some circulation, hopefully get a little bit of endorphins release, and allow my brain some brief pause time to just think, to daydream, to explore new ideas. Our second topic of discussion, and that is nature. Into the good old nature, guys, okay? We have to go outside. We are human beings. We were meant to be outside. We were not meant to be stuck in an air-controlled room 24/7 all day. We got to get outside. So something I'm starting to incorporate is 2 things. Going on walks outside. I know, brave the cold. It's okay. We'll be out of this soon. Don't trust me. I'm not a meteorologist, but hopefully we'll be out of this soon. But for me, not just getting steps on my walking pad, walking outside, plain and simple and boring. And we have a park by our home, and we're also just walking down there because I have to hang, but I need a little bit of assistance, i.e. my husband. We can walk down to the park for a little bit, get that dead hang, get that stretch in, and then come back home. So those are 2 things just to get outside. Not even necessarily getting outside, but getting out of your house. I think when we get in situations where people are working from home, or like myself, you're not able to work as much because of an injury, so you get stuck inside. That is also dangerous. So go out for coffee. If you have a lunch break, maybe go take that lunch break elsewhere. Exposing yourself to new stimuli is good for your brain. New stimuli is crucial for creativity. You have to be open to exposing yourself to new environments, new books, creative outlets, whatever it is, you have to be willing to expose yourself to new things and you have to have an open mind. So if we talk about reading, switching your genre, switching your authors, even for myself, for example, sometimes I get stuck on watching one or two specific content creators and I forget that I could expose myself to new content creators, and finding new content creators is absolutely where I find so much inspiration because people are always evolving, changing, sharing information on how they edit and how they do things. Another thing we need to be doing is intentional daydreaming, which often comes with intentional boredom. We have to get a little bored. We have to let our minds wander. Being on your phone 100% of your day and scrolling through TikTok, nobody feels good after they do it. Now, I'm a social media lover. I love social media. I love being on it. YouTube is absolutely my favorite platform of any social media, but I don't spend all day on it. I do my own things in my own time. I do see my friends, see my people. I do read books. I do have hobbies, I build my silly little Lego set, okay? I think that's a great way to let my mind wander 100%. If you stay on social media 100% of the time, there's no time for you to be bored. You're always giving your brain something new to react to. And I do think it's good to have because, again, you can find inspiration for your creativity. However, it doesn't need to be at all hours of the day. Probably not first thing in the morning, Instead of picking our phone up first thing in the morning, why don't you get your outside nature walk and let the juices start flowing and rolling up here, okay? We have to let our minds wander. And there's multiple ways you can do it. Going outside and getting in nature and going for a walk. Intentional daydreaming while you're exercising. People say they have their best ideas in the shower. There's nothing else to do other than wash your hair and your body. It's an opportunity to be bored and intentionally daydreaming. And that'll lead us into our next topic, and that's meditating. Now, this is not something I've ever done, but it's something I'm going to try to incorporate. Meditation has definitely been linked to that default mode network and how you can access it because you're intentionally bored. You're really taking a pause and allowing your brain the flexibility to explore new avenues. And at the same time, meditation can bring you a lot of peace. The less stress you have, the less you'll be in survival mode, and the more you will be able to imagine your biggest, wildest, most expansive dreams. So yeah, that's just a little bit of how we're getting creative again, okay? So if you feel like you've hit a creative roadblock, I think it's so important to remember that maybe you didn't stop being creative, but you lost an outlet for that creativity. And so instead of fully losing that inspiration or waiting for that specific inspiration to come back, almost forcing it, we can instead rebuild the conditions and framework that allow our creativity to emerge and flourish. Are you still with me? Is this making sense? Are the words I'm saying making sense? I think sometimes we are so after the idea of creativity and chasing it down rather than allowing our brain to have the space for that creativity. Maybe don't ask yourself, how do I create more? How do I get a new idea? I need a new idea. Think about what you could do to allow your brain to exist in a creative space. What would make your brain feel open and safe to create again? And again, don't forget, if you just start small, the rest is going to follow. One step at a time, one day at a time. And I know we didn't talk too much about reading in this video, but happy reading or happy whatever your hobby is.